5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice. We are back with part 2 of how to pick your specialty. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and this is 5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice, where you will learn the tools to provide exceptional care for your patients. This is the weekly podcast where you will be introduced to time-tested, evidence-based patient care strategies that aren't always taught in schools or training programs, but are nonetheless crucial for success in clinical practice. In the last episode, we began our discussion about how to pick a specialty for your career. How do we figure out what specialty to go into? Sadly, most schools and most training programs spend little time helping us to find our purpose, find our calling, find the specialty in which we will practice for the rest of our career. So usually we are left to our own devices to figure this sort of thing out for ourselves. Some of us get lucky and stumble onto a career that works. Some aren't so lucky and reach the age of 35 or 40 or 45 and realize that they have spent a decade or two climbing up the wrong ladder. I sincerely hope that this does not happen to you. My hope is that each of you will spend the time early in your career thinking through these questions and making sure that you find the path that works for you. Hopefully this will happen in high school or college or graduate school. But in the last episode and this episode, I'd like to discuss some principles that are helpful in figuring out what your specialty might be. The first two principles were discussed in the last episode. And number 1 was, what is your passion? What specialty truly inspires you? What gets you motivated? Do you love cardiology? Do you love internal medicine? Do you love a surgical specialty? Do you love radiology? Do you love dermatology? Figure out what area of healthcare inspires you. Think about your passions and think about what motivates you. Do you love working with your hands and repairing things? Well, if so, orthopedics might be something for you. Figure out what your passions are. The second principle is about your talents. Where do your talents lie? Either your natural talents or the talents that have developed over time. Are you a solitary person, or are you someone who enjoys meeting people and working with people? Are you intuitive? Do you have a gift for keen instincts? The goal here is to find a specialty where you are both passionate and talented. That's what we discussed last week. This week, let's move on to the next two questions, number 3 and number 4, and these are a little more practical, more nuts and bolts. The third principle is about scheduling. Think about your schedule now and what your schedule might look like in the future. This can be sometimes difficult, but try it out. Do you think you'll want a schedule that is more regimented, something like shift work? Or will you have flexibility in your life? Will you be able to have a flexible schedule? Will you want to work weekdays or weekends or a combination of the two? Will you want to be able to pick and choose your hours, or are you okay with longer hours? Will you be able to be called in late at night, or do you want to have a more predictable schedule? Getting married, having kids. Think about where you want to live, in a city or in the suburbs, in a rural area, or even in another country. Think about all these factors and how they will impact your schedule. All of these factors play practical roles in which specialty might work best for you. Spend the time now thinking about this. You don't want to get into a career that requires a certain sort of schedule that you either can't or don't want to follow. Think about this now. This is the third circle. Remember, in the last episode, I talked about the first two circles. The third circle is the scheduling circle. What specialty lies at the crossroads between the circle of passion, the circle of talent, and the circle of your schedule? And the fourth principle, the fourth circle, is the one most of us don't like to talk about, and that's money. I always tell students to focus on the first 3 principles that we've discussed: passion, talent, and then your schedule. But I also do recommend that students think about the financial realities of different career paths. Of course, this shouldn't be your overriding concern. However, different careers do yield different salary trajectories, And thinking about this early on can ensure that your ultimate financial reality is something with which you are comfortable. Different parts of the country have different costs of living. For example, if you live in Manhattan or San Francisco or certain parts of Los Angeles, the cost of living is very different than if you live in, for example, areas of Dallas or Atlanta or Chicago. Do you anticipate having kids? They are very expensive. So there is a financial reality to which specialty you choose, and you do want to at least think about this and make sure that you are comfortable with the specialty's financial trajectory. Think about what kinds of income you will most likely need based on where you will live and the kind of life you want to live, and just make sure that the financial realities match your expectations and goals. I'm not saying that you should pick a career based solely on income, but I am saying to make sure that your expected income will be sufficient for you and your family to live the kind of life that you're hoping to live. So these are the 4 circles: passion, talent, schedule, and income. Think through these circles and try to find a specialty where these 4 circles overlap. Make a list of the specialties where these 4 circles overlap and think about this list and go through this list and ruminate on it and try to figure out which one works best for you. Typically, the specialties where these 4 circles overlap are the ones that should be considered. These are the careers that are likely to lead to long-term fulfillment and success. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Pearl for Clinical Practice. You can email me at drmorris@5minutemd.com. That's DRMORRIS at 5minutemd.com. You can post your comments and your experiences on the 5 Minute MD Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at Brian Morris MD. And you can visit us anytime on our website, 5minutemd.com. Let your friends and your colleagues know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you are subscribed on iTunes, you will receive new podcast pearls as soon as they are posted. And if you have a few minutes and you enjoy what we're doing here on this podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave us a review. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you at the next 5.